Hi everyone, my name is Perry Dennehy and I'm with the Mason Historical Society. It's disappointing that we all can't be together this year at our normal Heritage Days celebration, but we think we have something a little different for you that you might enjoy, and we're going to highlight what we have at the Historical Society Museum. So why don't you follow me? This is our new 300 square foot big room, we call it. This was put on 3 years ago, and you can see it's almost full. So we have lots of items that we've added, new displays. We've been able to incorporate some materials that at one time were not displayed, and it all makes up, I think, an interesting tour for anyone from the citizens of Mason. I'd like to start with this wall because at the beginning, this group of citizens back in 1978 decided that Mason did need a historical society. They are meeting upstairs in what is now Two Cities Pizza, and they organized, they wrote their bylaws, their constitution, and they began collecting items and documenting materials that could be used. Mrs. Green was a member of that agency, and unfortunately, she knew she had some chronic health conditions that would eventually, take her life, but she had in her will a bequest that her house would be donated to the Mason Historical Society. So that was actually in 1978, the organization was formed, and in 1989, we were able to begin with this house. Hey, I'm going to introduce you to somebody that we think a lot of here in this town. So this fella here in his uniform, that's actually William Mason, or it's a portrayal of William Mason, and we give him the rank of Major William Mason. And at age 17, he was a Revolutionary War soldier, and although Mason was not incorporated or founded, the documents tell us that from time to time, soldiers marched through this area in order to get their military assignments. And on one of those trips, apparently, he was so impressed with the fertile soil, the water supply, and at some point must have realized that if he ever had the opportunity to settle, that he would come back into this area. And if you'll follow me, you'll actually see his handwritten drawing of what he proposed his settlement to be known as. And there are 16 lots that he proposed on paper there. The Muddy Creek is off to the right side of that photo, and it's from that the settlement was first made available in 1815. The village of Mason there took off from a very small one street to what we have today. We literally have over 200 years of history and information that's provided here inside the Historical Society. This corner is highlighting the first responders, and over the years in Mason, we've had a volunteer fire department up until present day, a full-time career fire department. In the police area, we had one town marshal, eventually police chief, and now we have a fully accredited full staff of police officers. So again, we're very proud of what Mason has today, but we're also very thankful for the build-up and the development of those organizations that were formed by common citizens and many times business people and a smaller group of folks. Mason has had a lot of private family-run businesses, and in these display cases you'll see many of those items, whether they're advertising items that they used or perhaps products that they actually sold or services and goods. Probably the heart of the house is the kitchen. And here at the Alberta Green Museum, we have a lot of pride in our kitchen. Not that we're doing a lot of cooking and baking in there, but I think if you just kind of sit back, you can picture maybe your own mom or your grandma preparing those meals which meant so much in your house. So follow me into the kitchen. But in this kitchen, you're going to notice a few changes from a modern day kitchen, like where's the refrigerator? When we ask that question for the kids that are taking the tour, they don't think that over here this wooden case is actually the refrigerator where you put in block ice on the top, which would keep the food items cold below. And of course the stove is probably a little bit differently from what they have in their kitchen. And when we tell them that you had to put wood or coal into the stove to get the heat going, that they're really fascinated by that. And you could keep water warm on this side. You could keep your vegetables warm up top while you're doing the main cooking. The water supply was probably a little different, although we do have a modern sink right now, but typically this would have been a hand pump where the water would have been coming out of the well. So a lot different operation of a kitchen than what we would think of today. No microwave, no ice dispenser, and the things that we think of convenience now, at one time those were just impossible. They didn't exist. After our tour of a kitchen, I'd like to show you our newest display that we have at the museum. And you might be able to guess, but we're calling this room the Comet Room, where we've kind of taken the time span of the 1960s, maybe the early 70s. Some folks in Mason refer to it as Bayberry Mason, but this might be a typical living room that you would have found in those time periods where the children were school age, they were maybe in the band, they were going to choir practice, they had Friday night football games, they were sledding in the Rose Hill Cemetery in the wintertime, but then this was their living room, kind of the center point of the house. We have some entertainment, which was a black and white television set, and we all remember in Mason when we didn't have cable television then, you had to have antennas, and you could get a little better reception if you put some aluminum foil on those antennas. What's on TV tonight? Well, you had to get the TV guide. And when you look through the TV guide, it would tell you what shows are on tonight. We only got about 6 channels, so you didn't have a whole lot to choose from. Our teenagers are here being represented as cheerleaders and athletes in the community of Mason. Now that we've talked a little bit about high school age students living in Mason, let's kind of give an overview of all the education. So we have a display in this hallway, and what we have depicted is school buildings in Mason over the years, beginning with one-room schoolhouses, which some of them are still standing, of course not being used as schools now, up to our modern-day campus buildings of Mason High School, middle school, intermediate school, and early school contact. And regardless if you attended Mason schools in a one-room schoolhouse or a campus-style building, it's well known that those years in school will be with you your entire lifetime. And for those of us that attended school, maybe not just yesterday, we have some items on display that might remind you of those days inside the schoolhouse that one day you attended. So here at the museum, we have one room dedicated as a medical room, a doctor's office. Now, actually, this room was never used as a doctor's office. These are actual furnishings, office equipment, and the photos of doctors and dentists in town who donated their supplies, their furniture. And this would have been your typical doctor's office setup. In many communities, they were in their homes. So as you can pan around, you can see some of the instruments, microscopes, pharmaceuticals, where the doctor actually mixed their own chemicals for their patients. We also have a spotlight of the nurses, that many people that come through will recognize the faces of these nurses that work side by side the doctors in town. And again, this room does generate a lot of stories from residents who grew up in Mason. We have the master bedroom where cribs and furnishings are being displayed, but there's a mystery inside this bedroom that I'm not going to tell you about. I'm going to encourage you to come visit the museum and I'll be able to tell you all about it. But again, there's something in this room that I think is very interesting. I'll just let the camera pan and see if they can find it. The rug that we're standing on was made from World War II knapsacks, which again was very common that generation, they didn't want to throw anything away. And very similar to what you'll hear people weaving mats for homeless people using Kroger bags or Walmart bags. So the kind of the same concept here of nothing got thrown away, that everything needed to be used for something. And here's an example of the war generation where people made lots of sacrifices and kind of stretched our resources because of the need. Next to our children's room, we have a sewing room. And inside the sewing room, we have some sewing machines and needles that were used. We're going to step outside into our front porch. A lot of folks refer to maybe the TV show that maybe Mason was very similar to that. People would sit on the front porch, wave to their neighbors as they drove by. Everybody knew everybody's name. And really that's what Heritage Days is all about. If you haven't been able to take part in a museum visit up to this point, we encourage you to do that in the future. We're open every Thursday and Friday from 1 to 4 p.m., as well as the first Saturday of the month. We appreciate the City of Mason coming forward today and visiting with us. Again, thanks for stopping by.